Welcome to class this morning. Glad that you could all be here. Today I would like to talk about three economists, Angus Madison, William Nordhaus, and Julian Simon. Our foundation scripture for this lecture is found in Doctrine and Covenants 104:17. For the earth is full, and there is enough and to spare. Yea, I prepared all things, and have given unto the children of men to be agents unto themselves. There are two economic principles that we find here. One, that the earth is full, and two, that the Lord has given us agency or freedom that we might be able to discover and create value from this fullness. Angus Madison is the first economist that we want to talk about. He was a British economist, and he specialized in quantitative macroeconomic history, including the measurement and analysis of economic growth and development. He was recognized as probably the world's leading authority on economic history. The New York Times said he has devoted his life to forecasting the past. All right, Professor Madison first majored in history, but he was drawn to economics because he realized that it was, and I quote, a useful discipline for solving serious problems. In 1999, he was asked by the Wall Street Journal to write an article kind of commemorating the coming millennium. And the article that he wrote, the title of it was Poor Until 1820. So this date immediately caught my attention. He argued that per capita income, if you looked at it, things looked like a hockey stick. A hockey stick trend, I'll describe this to you. He basically went back and said 1 AD, if we scale this time on the horizontal and income per day on the vertical axis, he said that really since the time of Christ, people lived on an average of about $2 a day. But in 1820, something happened, and the world suddenly got richer. In fact, it got 15 times richer. Went from $2 a day to $30 a day today. And it looks, that trend line kind of looks like a hockey stick. Goes along horizontal, and then suddenly it goes vertical. In some places in the world, income actually increased by a factor of 50 or more. In North America and Northern Europe, people spend $100 to $130 a day. So here are some of the other things that he concluded. If we take a look at this chart, 1820, about 94 people out of 100 were living in extreme poverty. Today, that is about 10. Literacy, kind of an interesting one here. 1820, about 12 people out of 100, 12% could read. Today, it's well over 85% can read. Child mortality is kind of an interesting one. Almost 40% of young people died before they reached the age of 5. Today, it's only 4. So a dramatic reduction in child mortality. In fact, if you go to a cemetery today, if you go to a cemetery that's more than a couple hundred years old, what you find there are young mothers and children. The life expectancy in 1820 was about 27 years old. Today, it's about 70. Well, how did that happen? Interesting other thing is the number of the percent of the population that lived under democracy. In 1820, only 1% of the world lived under democracy. Today, it's about 56%. A huge change in that statistic. So, if we were to look at 1820 versus 2016, we see that population was at about 1.1 billion. Today, we have 7.5 billion people on the planet. We've increased population by seven plus times. Life expectancy, as I mentioned, about 26 years old. Today it's 72 years old. We've added 46 years of life to the life expectancy. Income per capita, that's how much an individual has to spend. $2 a day, 1820. Today it's about $30 a day for the average across the planet. So a 15 times increase. If we simply just factor that and say, let's look at 1 billion times 26 years times 2, it gives us a factor of 52. If we do the same thing here, the factor is 16,200. We're basically 311 times better off in terms of creating wealth for more people. They're living longer, they're creating more wealth, and their lives are much longer. All right, so the next economist that we want to talk about is William Nordhaus. Now, William Nordhaus, he's an economist from Yale, and in 1996, he wrote an article. He wanted to analyze the cost of producing light through history. So I went back as far as he could, and he analyzed the cost of producing light. And the way he measures light, the way that we measure light is in lumens. And an old 80-watt light bulb would produce about 1,000 lumens of light. So we use that as a basis because you kind of need that in order to read at night. So he said, what would it cost to produce that? One of the first things he looked at is the cost of an oil lamp. 1750 BC, he found that it would take about 40 hours worth of labor, of work, to be able to earn the money to buy enough oil that would generate 1,000 lumens for 1 hour of time. You can see why maybe the wise virgins didn't want to share their oil. It was really expensive. So we kind of fast forward to 1820, Joseph Smith's time. The cost to produce 1 hour's worth of light, that time you had to buy a candle. It was a tallow candle, or it might have been made out of beeswax. It was about 3 hours of time. So you work 3 hours, you get 1 hour of light. We skip forward, 1883, Edison invents the first electric light bulb. We know other people were involved there, but Edison got the credit for it. The cost was about 45 minutes. You work 45 minutes, you can earn the money to buy 1 hour's worth of light. This light bulb dramatically increased in efficiency, so by 1920, this light would only take about less than a minute. You would work less than a minute, and you could earn enough money to have this light for this period. 1920 is when that price fell. 1992, the little CFC light bulbs, the little curly light bulbs, look like ice cream cones. It takes about 0.43 seconds, less than a second worth of labor, to be able to earn the money to buy one of these, an hour worth of light. And today, the current LED lights, it takes about 0.16 second to earn the money to buy this power to have 1 hour's worth of light. So we go from 1820, taking 3 hours, to today taking 0.16 seconds. The increase has been a factor of 67,500 times. Basically what we have is the price of light has dropped by 99.9994%. Now we can truly say that truth has burst forth in abundant light. All right, the third economist that we want to talk about is Julian Simon. Now, let me give you a little background. When I was a junior in high school, the teacher asked us to read 3 books. My social studies teacher. And it was The Population Bomb, Silent Spring, and Limits to Growth. Now these books painted a picture of the future that was very bleak. They made 2 arguments. First, that the earth was massively overpopulated, and that the only hope for survival would be to immediately have coercive birth control. And the second point that they made was that we were running out of all of our natural resources. We were running out of everything because we had too many people. So I was, one of 6 children. I was pretty, I felt pretty guilty about what these books were saying. I felt like maybe my family was responsible for all of this. And so I was troubled for some time over this. Now we know that At that time, we had an energy crisis, and the price of oil went up, and it seemed to confirm the hypothesis that was in these books, that we were running out of everything. Now, these books also contradicted the two principles that we read in the Doctrine and Covenants about the earth being full, and that we have the agency to be able to create and develop value. So I kind of had these two problems. 10 years later, I'm in college, and I happen to have the opportunity to meet this guy, Julian Simon. Now, what he said is, he said, let me ask you two questions. If we are truly running out of things, life expectancy should be going down. We should be living less, fewer and fewer years. And the second question is, if we were running out of stuff, stuff should be getting more and more expensive. Now, I said, yeah, those are two good questions. Now, so I thought about the books that I read in high school. I said, well, do you have any books? And he said, yeah, I sure do. The two questions that he had about life expectancy and the cost of resources. He'd written several books at that time. He'd written several more books after we had our meeting. And all these books were just filled with all these facts and logic and evidence to basically draw a totally opposite conclusion. If you looked at life expectancy, for example, the doomsayers, and that's what he called them, said that life expectancy should be going down. All of his data, historical data, the facts, said no. The opposite is true. Life expectancy is increasing. He said also that the price of raw goods, that the doomsayers said that the price of all these things should be going up. And his research, his economic research, said no, prices are going down. Well, why could that possibly be the case? How could prices be going down? Well, he made this argument. More people create more ideas. More ideas result in more inventions. And more inventions create more innovations. And innovations are what make our society wealthy. So, if you want more wealth, you've got to be in favor of more people. And the evidence and the logic in his findings all supported these conclusions. Now, he made a couple of statements that I thought were really interesting. The first thing he said is the ultimate resource is people, especially skilled, spirited, and hopeful young people like you, endowed with liberty, who will exert their wills and imaginations for their own benefit, and so inevitably they will benefit the rest of us as well. Great statement. He also made this statement. He said, my long-run forecast is brief. The material conditions of life will continue to get better for most people in most countries most of the time indefinitely. In other words, he forecasted that we're going to continue to get better and better and better. And all this other evidence supported it. And then he made one concluding statement. I also speculate, however, that many people will continue to think and say that the conditions of life are getting worse. Now, don't you hear that? We're getting worse and worse and worse. You know, instead of listening to that, we've got to look at the facts. We've got to look at the facts. Do the facts support these ideas? So, in conclusion, we'd like to thank our three guest economists for their good hard work and the work that they've done to support what we find in Revelation about the earth being full and about us as individuals being gifted with agency that we might go out and discover and create wealth and value from this fullness that we enjoy. All right, any questions?